Yo, what's up guys? How you doing? How's your week been going? Let me know down below. I hope the gains have been with you, but today I want to talk about getting back in the gym because in the UK, the gyms are going to be reopening very soon, which is fantastic. I know I'm super fortunate, I have some equipment at home, but I do still miss the gyms. I want to train with my homies. I want to go out and I just want to return to a gym. I like being in gyms. Anyway, the point is, for those of you guys that maybe haven't had a chance to train in gyms recently, maybe you've kind of had to do reduced training at home, when you finally get to set foot back in a gym, you do need to approach your training ever so slightly differently, at least for the first few weeks. So today I put together a few handy tips to make sure you can dive back in and make those gains as best as possible. So let's get it. Alright, so to begin with, you can kind of liken this to sort of New Game Plus. I appreciate different video games approach New Game Plus in different ways, but you know the kind of games where it's like you get to keep your abilities and things that you've learned, but you do still need to level your character up again. It's kind of like that, right? Because if you haven't been to the gym for a while, there's still a certain degree of muscle memory you have. You of course have memory for your technique and different things like that, but there will definitely be some things that you have lost. However, it won't take you that long to regain those. So, in at number one, your first tip is to start light. Do not, in any way, go back in the gym and be expecting to lift your previous max on day one, right? The truth is, you will have lost a little bit of strength, but do not see that as a negative because honestly, lost strength gains can be reacquired relatively quickly in the grand scheme of things. But most importantly, when you go back, you want to be starting light because when it comes to training, there's two important factors. You obviously have the stimulus you apply on your muscles, which of course helps with the growth, but the actual growth comes during the recovery period. And if you go too hard, you lift too heavy, you injure yourself, or the kind of just muscle damage to begin with is just too drastic, then when it comes to the recovery phase, you're going to be out the gym even longer than you were before. So you need to approach it in a very sensible manner. When you go back in your first week, second week, honestly for the first month, you really want to be keeping things pretty light. If you're doing big compound lifts, you can be looking at sort of 50-60% of your previous max. And if you're doing more isolation movements with say machines, then we're looking more towards like 80% of your max. But the main thing is you want to go back in and you want to start light because really if you haven't been able to lift anything substantial for quite some time, the first thing you need to do is make sure your body gets accustomed to lifting those weights again, feeling those weights in your hands, and just generally speaking, feeling more comfortable in that environment. So the first few weeks should definitely be kind of like the tutorial mission in a video game. You're going in, you're relearning your skills, you're kind of just brushing up on the combat, making sure you know what your button inputs are. Then once you've got them, you can dive headlong in to the bigger missions. However, point number two, and of course this goes hand in hand with number one, is to focus on technique. In fact, this should apply all the time, regardless of whether you are returning to the gym or whether you have been in the gym for the past 100 years. Technique is king. Lift well first, lift heavy second, right? But this is especially important if you are coming back because again, even though there will be lots of things that will be muscle memory, kind of like riding a bike, if you haven't ridden a bike for a while, you jump back on, the first few minutes of just like pedaling around, you're kind of trying to find your balance and then suddenly it falls back in place and you're like, okay, cool, this makes sense. The first few weeks you're back in the gym, you really want to be focusing super hard on that technique because when it comes to, any movement, but especially things like compounds, squats, deadlift, bench press, you really want to try and sort of make sure you can refine your groove, whether that be, the way you're picking the weight up, when you're squatting, when you're kind of benching, your positions. There'll be ever so slight adjustments where if you haven't done it for a while, you'll pick up the bar and you just be like, things are ever so slightly off. So you really want to use these first few weeks back where you are lifting lighter weights, pair that with technique to really make sure that every single rep is the perfect rep. Every single rep is as good as it can possibly be, because then when you start to add weight, you start to add load, then you're going to set yourself up really nicely. Meanwhile, if you just jump straight back in at a heavier weight and your technique is not quite right, then you might be all right for a few weeks, but fast forward a couple of months down the line, that's not a good recipe. So start light, focus on technique, and those should be the two core foundations of your comeback program. And then number three, of course, is to enjoy it. Like enjoy the process, enjoy the newbie window. Some of you guys might be familiar. If you've been in the gym for a while, you'll probably be familiar with the concept of newbie gains. When people start to lift for the very first time, there's a lot of kind of development, a lot of things that happen quite quickly, and this kind of happens when you are an untrained individual. However, for people that haven't been able to train for quite some time, you can experience a degree of that. In fact, research shows it's easier to rebuild lost muscle than it is to grow new muscle. So in a situation where if you haven't been able to train in the gym for the past, say, 6 months or 12 months, coming back in is actually going to be a great time for you because you can very quickly regain a lot of that lost ground, and it's just going to feel great. So the fact is, you're back in the gym, enjoy the process, enjoy the gains, and just try to focus more on the steps you're making on a daily basis as opposed to looking back at previous numbers and thinking, oh no, this is really annoying. Because honestly, the previous numbers don't matter. What matters is how you live today. What matters is that you are healthy, strong, and you're making new gains, because they will obviously lay the greatest foundation. Now, if you are looking for some kind of comeback program, I do want to recommend a really good video from Jeff Nippard. He actually put together like a video on the sort of the science behind muscle regrowth after sort of detrained windows, and he even has like a comeback program which you can check it out if you wanted something like that to guide you. But main thing is, come back in, lift light, focus on technique, enjoy the process, and honestly, you'll be back in no time. So there you have it, just a few handy tips to get you back in the gym. For those of you guys that are going to be jumping back in soon, let me know down below. Let me know what your plan is. Let me know what you are most excited to be doing. And of course, keep it locked for plenty more on the channel.